And good evening and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show on intellectualradio.com, iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We have a jam-packed 2 hours for you. Todd Stroju, who's the former Cook County Board President, is going to be with me coming up a little bit later on the program. But first, we are going to be talking with my guest who's going to be joining me momentarily. For those of you who have pets, you're dog lovers, the summer pet wellness boom, pet wellness products are exploding in the popularity this summer, from the hydration gadgets and muscle supplements to dog treadmills and fitness equipment, as Americans increasingly treat pets like family. And of course, those of you who are pet lovers like myself, of course, I don't have any pets, but pet parents are spending more than ever on products designed to improve the animal's comfort, mobility, hydration, and fitness. Peak summer heat and mobility season is right here upon us. So we're going to be talking with the viral pet trends flooding social media feeds. It can be difficult for parents or pet parents to determine what helps when it comes to keeping your pets healthy. Joining us is Dr. Kelly Fishman, veterinarian, sports medicine, and rehabilitation specialist and founder of Strut Animal Mobility Specialist, to share with which summer pet wellness products are truly worth the money that we spend on it. She's going to be joining me momentarily about that. So if you are a feline, or if you have a dog, cats, any type of animals, you know that there are certain practices that you have that some are good, some are not. And so we're going to find out what actually is working, if it's worth it. Some of that stuff that we all spend, like I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday that their dog is on $350 worth of medication. $350 worth of medication that they have to spend on their dog. Sometimes I wonder if, in fact, all of that is necessary. So we're going to be talking with Dr. Kelly Fishman in just a few minutes. We're also going to be talking about a whole bunch of other things. We're going to be talking about Mitch McConnell. Where is he? What's his condition? And is he capable of serving? And the death of Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Trump ally and foreign policy hawk, died at the age of 71, just 2 days after his 71st birthday. McConnell explained that a 4-week silence to his conditions by saying that folks of any generation often hesitate to share the vulnerability that comes with growing older. I don't understand that whole phenomenon, and I really don't. You can see that people are getting older. We're all getting older. And as long as you live, you are going to get older. The only way not to get old is to die young. Now, Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham are two people that I have serious disdain for. I think that they are racist from hip to hip, and I think they're two very evil people that served in our government. I know that there are some people who say, well, how can you say such awful things about somebody who has passed? Well, Hitler was an awful person, and we don't talk good about Hitler. We don't, there's nothing sanctimonious about speaking well of a person who did not live well. Now, I have heard all kinds of tributes about Lindsey Graham and conflicting tributes about Lindsey Graham. I don't wish death on anybody, but Lindsey Graham, in my view, and I'm going to talk about it at length a little bit later on in the program, was what I would consider to be not a good person. We're going to be talking about that and a whole lot of other things later on in the program. We're also going to be talking about some local news here, where Mayor Brandon Johnson and his administration is proposing a congestion daily tax. Get your thoughts on that, as well as this surcharge that they're talking about on landlords. And of course, we're going to be talking about tips and a whole lot of other things coming up with the former Cook County Board President Todd Strozier is going to be joining me a little bit later on in the program. Right now, we're going to be talking with my guest. She is back with us, Dr. Kelly Fishman, who is a veterinary sports medicine and rehabilitation specialist. I bet you all never heard of that because I didn't hear about it until she first came on with us. So I'm going to welcome her to the program. Dr. Fishman, welcome to the program. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Mark. I'm happy to be back.
Good to have you back. Good to have you back. Well, the summer is here, and of course, we like to be out with our animals in the parks and in the pets. And walking our dogs, and some people even run their dogs with them when they're taking a jog. So you're going to help us understand better what the do's and don'ts are, and some of the stuff that people are doing and money that they're spending, if it's well worth it. So, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because I see this frequently, there's a guy in my neighborhood who rides a bike, and he has his dog on a leash running next to the bike. Is that a do or is that a don't?
It's a maybe. If your dog is conditioned, if your dog doesn't have things like arthritis, it's okay. It's hard on the joints for dogs because they're running on, the asphalt or maybe the concrete. If it's a sidewalk. So it's not great. And the other thing is when you're riding a bike, you may not be as tuned in to your dog as you would if you'd be walking them. So you're walking them, you're like, oh, I noticed they're limping or they're slowing down a little bit. They're panting more. He needs a break. You may not notice that as much if you're, riding a bike and running your dog. So, some people do it, but, and actually there is a dog sports that do these kinds of things. But those dogs are really kind of conditioned to it.
Okay. Yeah. Because it seems to me, I looked at it and this guy has a German Shepherd. All right. It's a German Shepherd. And it didn't seem right to me. It seems a little bit abusive that he would be riding a bike and the dog is jogging along. It's not like he's just going a short distance. They're going a pretty good distance. So I guess to your point that if the dog is conditioned for it, then it may be okay.
Yeah. And there's so many cool things you could do with your dogs. Like there's a lot of other stuff. Like I can talk about it today and like all the dog fitness exercises you could do, better ways to bond with your dog. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Is walking enough?
No. No. Dogs are descended from wolves and, they're meant to be constantly moving. And you think that if you think that you've taken an animal that's used to constantly moving, even if it's a Chihuahua, it still has it in it to basically go to 2 10-minute walks every day, that's not enough. It's not enough at all. Mm-hmm. And I think our modern dogs are a little bit out of shape. They're overweight. And I think they're bored, and I think part of that is because they're just not getting the levels of exercises that they're probably meant to get. And some of the behavior problems that dogs get could be linked to that too.
Well, when you say overweight, is it, is that because they're overfeeding dogs or they're just not getting enough exercise?
Both.
It seems to me that when dogs are overweight, and I see dogs that are overweight, I would imagine it's pretty painful and certainly not healthy for the dog. But it seems like it's much more difficult for those dogs to lose that weight once they put that weight on, because you don't want to, you feel guilty about, starving the dog, but it's not so healthy because I'm sure what does that do to the dog's organs when they're overweight, or any pet, cats as well?
Yeah. So thinking of the joints first, because that's my area of expertise. So that extra weight just puts a little bit of extra pressure on the joints. So every time they're going for a walk or jumping out of the car, instead of having their normal body weight, what it should be, it could be about 10 pounds more than they should weigh on the joints. And that repeatedly causes a lot of joint stress and the breakdown of joints. So that's one bad thing. The other thing, and I didn't realize this, or I wasn't taught this in vet school, but actually fat can be really inflammatory. And inflammation, you don't want that in your body. And so for that reason, it can make conditions like arthritis worse because that they're just having fat around compared to muscle is just not as good for the body. Now, why are our dogs so fat? Probably because we all overfeed them and we don't exercise them enough, as you noted. And why do we overfeed them? Because the food companies want us to, like they have their suggested feedings on the back of the food container, but they don't tell anybody that that's the suggested feeding for an intact animal. It's almost like the most you should be feeding, right, is suggested. Is there a suggested one? But it's necessarily not what you should be feeding for your animal. So if you have a senior, they need less calories. So, I think that we accidentally or we unknowingly overfeed our animals. And I think once I sit down with my pet parents and I'm like, listen, like, this is how many calories your dog should be eating. And like here, they're getting treats on top of that kibble. And then you also sometimes give them a little bit of table scraps, even though you shouldn't. Well, maybe you should, but we accidentally overfeed them. I think that's a big part of the problem.
What are some of the biggest wellness trends that you're seeing with pets this summer?
Supplements. I've gotten so many text messages randomly. I'm like down and I'm thinking, oh, look, someone's texting me. It's one of my pet parents. And they're like, we found this supplement and it's promising longevity. Or, my dog, recently had a dog named Tiffany who was slowing down. I think she was an 18-year-old Yorkie, 18 years old, slowing down. I said, let's do exercises. We have so many things. We have the Myos Pet, which is improved to build muscle in dogs that are slowing down their seniors. Let's get them on the Myos Pet. Let's do some exercises. Let's get your dog moving. And she's like, okay. And all those things are science-based about how to build muscle. And then she texts me and I'm like, what is this? I don't want to say what it was, like an NADH. That's what it was. And I was like, what is this? Like no evidence, like barely any evidence in people, definitely no evidence in dogs. So a lot of that. And then she sends me all kinds of stuff all the time. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff on social media that you're just marketed to. So that's what I'm seeing. Tons of supplements, an explosion of supplements. And to be honest, Mark, there's not a lot of good stuff out there. So pet parents have to be wary of what they're giving to their dogs.
So you're basically saying that supplements are not, they're not a real benefit, cost benefit or health benefit to dogs,
okay.
or are there?
It can be. Okay, so here's what it is. Dog food, when I go get my dog food or my cat food, canned or kibble, I make it at home with the recipe, doesn't matter. That's providing everything that my dog or cat needs to survive. Okay. And if you have a normal animal, like there's nothing wrong with it, that's fine. But if you have any kind of dog or cat that has a condition, so allergies, you want to consider supplementing to treat their condition. So if I had a dog that had allergies, I would do things like probiotics, because that's been proven to calm the immune system. So even though you're like, how does the immune system and the allergies or how could that help my dog stop itching so much? But actually, we know that feeding probiotics is a really good way to basically strengthen the gut lining to prevent the ingestion of allergens through the stomach and into the bloodstream. So we know that that's a link, or one of the ways that allergies can worsen with a bad gut health. So doing probiotics, if I have a dog that has allergies, can be really helpful. The other thing I was talking about is dogs with arthritis. So if I had a dog with arthritis, I'd be like, listen, I need to put my dog on some fish oil because that's helping the joints. I need to put my dog on that Myos Pet because we know that helps mobility and strength in older dogs and dogs with arthritis. You put them on that. So it's not about supplementing is great. And you should do it smartly, meaning that you're picking things that are evidence-based for your dog's needs. So that's why I love supplementing. That's what it's good for. If you have a 4-year-old lab, there's nothing wrong with them. You maybe don't need to do it unless you want to be preventative, which is a whole different story. But I think smartly supplementing is the way to do it.
All right. Well, we're we're in the summer, and of course, we have these heat waves all over the country. And dogs are out, sidewalks are very hot, depending upon where you live. If you live in a place like Texas or live in a place like Arizona, where temperatures get 100 plus, 115 plus. What's your recommendation for dogs being outside in extreme heat weather?
Be careful. So I like to talk about the number 150. And what this is that if you look on your weather app and you see that the temperature and the humidity is bigger than 150, you add them together, your dog is more at risk for having heat stroke. So that's why like certain areas like Houston is a lot more dangerous for your dog on a hot and humid day. So like when it's maybe 80 degrees, but like 80% humidity, that could be more dangerous because it's over that 150 number than say if you're in Arizona and it's like, 80 and 10% humidity, that's under the 150 number. So pet parents should remember that. And I actually have it on my social media, Strut Animal. If you ever forget that, please check it out because that's a really, easy way to know, like, should I be exercising my dog outside? Like, are they more at risk for heat stroke?
And those water stream bowls, are those really a necessity? Is that a plus or a minus for dogs?
Okay, all right. I bought one for my cat. He never used it, and I couldn't return it. He used it for 4 days, so he used it enough, so I couldn't return it. So I think I would say skip it.
What about cooling pads for
small
dogs?
Small dogs. So one of my pug patients, that works really well for them. That's a good way to not heat cool your dog down if they have any kind of medical emergency like heat stroke. It doesn't work. It's not that effective for that, but it works really well for just keeping your dog cool on a really hot day.
Well, I have a friend of mine who has a cane corso. The dog's probably about 150 pounds. And he'll go out and he digs down in the dirt, right? And then he lays down in the dirt, I guess, because it cools him down. Would you recommend that as effective, or
I don't know if it's effective, but I mean, it's not been scientifically proven, let's just say that. But what does work is if you took a hose and he was in his little mud hole, his little hole, and you got it all wet, that's be a great way to cool him down. But that's interesting that he does that. Like you think about these dogs and they like to create little dens, and that's certainly places where they feel safe. That's why they think that dogs like crates. So even, it's hard, if you have a dog crate, they actually, if you train them as a puppy, they actually come to like it. And part of it is the thought that they need these dens. So yeah, that could be what he's doing.
I know that when I had my shepherd, he's since had to put him down, but I noticed that I would have to take a water bottle with us on a walk because we would go for long walks, and then there were times that he would just stop and lay down, but I would literally have to take a water bottle to give him water on the walk. And
I'm going to steal that hydration tip.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, but I was wondering, is that signaling some sort of medical issue, or is that just normal depending on the dog or the weather?
So it depending on the dog or the weather, probably he was signaling to you that he was hot and he just needed a break because dogs, they don't sweat, they have to pant. So that's not that efficient. So they tend to overheat. And then you have a large breed dog, more likely to overheat. And then if they're a little, he's older, like a senior, also more likely to overheat as well too. Or sorry, not large breed dog, but a dog with long fur, compared to like a
Mhm.
hairless Chihuahua or something like that. Those dogs tend to be able to cool themselves a little bit more efficiently. So I bet he was just telling you, like, "Hey, Dad, hot. Why are we walking? Get me inside."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just started doing that. I didn't know, I was like, wow, he's really hot. So let me just take a bottle of water. And it typically worked. What about exercise equipment? Those treadmills that people buy for their dogs, are those really good for their joints or good for working animals out? Is it
I
really
like
worth the price of it?
dog exercise equipment. If it's something you actually use, yeah. I like doing the treadmills because if it is a hot day, it's hot, humid day. It's over that 150 number that I talked about with the temperature and the humidity. That you have a
Mhm.
senior or a dog that tends to overheat, or they're totally out of shape. You could just like put the treadmill on, make sure it's a dog treadmill, and watch TV with your dog in the AC. Like that seems great to me. They're expensive,
Mhm.
and they're expensive because you have to make sure that you get one that's fit for a dog, which means that it's super long. So that's the only bummer, is that the price. It is pricey. Is it great? Yeah, but and do you need it? No. You can do a lot of stuff inside. Like, if you look at my Instagram, I have dog squats, dog plank, dog side steps,
Mhm.
like a million exercises you could do to keep your dog strong and fit without having to buy any exercise equipment. So no, you don't need to do that, but it'd be cool. It's cool. I like it. I wish I had one. I don't.
Yeah, well, I see some of those things on social media, on TikTok, where people have their dogs running on. Well, it's not really an animal treadmill; it's just a treadmill but they obviously have trained the dog to run on, and I don't know if the dog is loving it or not, or if it's good or not for the dog.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's a dog one, because what happens is that your dog, the way that they run, you want to make sure it's a dog treadmill because a normal one will make them have really small steps. So
Mhm.
there's safety guidelines that you can look up, and or I'm happy to share on my social media. Like I said, it's Strut Animal, all about dog treadmills. And some of those other things that I talked about. But yeah, there's other like little tricks. Like you don't want it facing a wall, like for example. So because dogs like they can't get over the fact that like they're gonna run into the wall. So you always want to like have
Mhm.
it facing outside or the center of a room. So that'd be like a little tip if someone wanted to get a dog treadmill that I would share.
Right. Your social media, I'm going to put it up so that people can get it. It's called Strut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's because a little dog, happy dog struts. So Strut
Okay.
Animal is my website. And I have Instagram and Facebook, and I have dog exercises on there. I also have on my website, which is Strut Animal, links to dog exercise equipment, my top products, like all my supplements that I think that are evidence based, that you're not going to waste your money on my website, Strut Animal. And then the one I talked about that I love is Myos Pet. And you can visit myospet.com if anyone's interested in helping a dog that's older and slowing down.
Mhm.
That's a great supplement to start.
So now you said a dog treadmill. So what's the difference in the dog treadmill? Is that a treadmill where the dog actually controls I guess the pace of the treadmill, or
Yeah,
what's
so
the
the human,
difference?
so right now, there's not one that's adaptive, and that would be a great one to have. Actually, I would love that feature. Right now, you have to
Mhm.
stand by your dog, and you have to control the speed. So you have to really be paying attention to your animal. And again, the only thing different about it is that it is really long. And so what that means is if you have a small dog, if I have a French bulldog and I want to work them out on a dog treadmill, I could most likely use a human one because I have a small dog, right? But if you have a shepherd, that dog won't fit. Like as soon as they start running on a regular treadmill, their legs are too long. They need
Right.
a longer treadmill. So that tends to be like what we recommend, or what the big difference is just the length.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that we make with our animals, especially during the summertime?
Gosh, what is a hard one? I think that part of it is we kind of let them take the summer off, and we get what I call is the weekend warrior. And the weekend warrior is when you go to work, your dog stays home, they're on the couch, they're watching daytime soaps, the AC is blasting, they're gaining weight, they've maybe done an early walk in the morning and an early walk at night because it's really hot. And all of a sudden it's the weekend and you go out, everybody's going to the beach and your dog's running around like crazy because they're so happy to be there, and they get hurt. So we see a lot of injuries like that over the summer. And again, we can even have a name for it called weekend warrior. So people should be careful with that. And maybe that's a reason why you should get an dog treadmill, so you can keep them fit, or visit my website and my Instagram and look at some of those exercises I was talking about. Because that's certainly a solution to this, is to keep your dog fit. Start that Myos Pet, build muscle without exercising, that's stuff I would suggest.
And in terms of taking your dog out for a walk, what's the minimum time somebody should to walk your dog? Because some people let the dog go out, take care of their little business, and come back in. But how long should you actually walk your dog?
So it depends if you're trying to build endurance. So if I'm trying to build cardiovascular strength, then I want to do about a 5 minute or 15 minute of a continuous run, or kind of a trot with my dog, or 5 minutes of a continuous swim. So those types of exercises will build strength in their heart and their lungs, which is certainly a great thing. But if I'm looking to build endurance just for walking, which is great, I think about half an hour to 45-minute walk would be good. Now, keep in mind, dogs don't lose a lot of weight by walking. That's why I say walks aren't all that cracked up to be. And again, that's because dogs are descended from a wolf and the wolves, and they're meant to be moving around all day, kind of searching, roaming around. And because of that, their muscles are different than ours in certain ways that makes them very efficient to move. So unlike us, they don't burn tons of fat by doing walks. So unfortunately, that's all about cutting the calories instead of upping the exercise.
What about, here in Chicago on some of the public parks, they have these, what do they call them? Well, they have all these different things that the dogs can do. What do they call that? But
agility.
Dogs yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, what about dogs jumping up and down on landings? Is that something good for the dog, or is that harmful?
Yeah. So there's fitness agility out there. So there's a whole fitness program that people can do to train to do agility exercises that build fitness. So those types of surfaces, when you do agility, you kind of work with your dog knows how to safely interact with those things. That's part of agility 101, is like the first day you're like, hey, here's how we use the equipment safely. So certainly having a basic understanding of how to safely go over the A-frame or some of these other pieces of equipment is a good idea. But there's also a lot of fun exercises you could do with dogs, the agility exercises and agility fitness. And dogs love this stuff. And even dogs you wouldn't think would like it, like the small breed dogs, like our Chihuahuas and our Corgis, they love exercise. It's funny. Cats don't. Yeah. Cats are not a fan, but dogs are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I watch a lot of this stuff. That's, sort of the pleasure that I have to get, because I can't have any pets. My wife is not a pet lover, so I have to enjoy them by watching them or some of my other friends' animals. All right, we're talking with Dr. Kelly Fishman. who is a veterinary sports medicine and physical rehabilitation expert. And they can reach you on, how can folks get in contact with you?
So my website is a great way, Strut Animal. I'm always happy to answer questions. People have reached out before. They've been like, you've talked too fast. You had said too much to say. What were your supplement recommendations? And I responded back. So I do answer questions if anyone ever does happen to write me. And on my website, Strut Animal, there is all my supplement suggestions. You can find the Myos Pet there. You can find my other ones like fish oil, dog exercises, everything. And then I have a Facebook and an Instagram as well.
Okay, fantastic. Dr. Fishman, thank you very much for coming back. It's always good to talk with you. And maybe you'll come back and talk with us going into the winter months.
Let's do it, Mark. That'd be fun.
Okay. All right, fantastic. All right. Appreciate you coming by. Dr. Kelly Fishman, thank folks, you. Go and check her out. Okay.
Have a good night.
All right. You too. Take care. All right, folks, we are going to be, if you have animals, I think it'd be good to go and check her out. Go on her website, go to her Instagram at Strut Animal, and you can go to her Facebook page. She also has a Facebook page at facebook.com/Strut Animal, and also you can go to her website for safety tips. I'll put all of that information up on our link there, and you will be able to get in contact with her. All right. We are going to get into our conversation. My guest co-host is going to be coming in with us in just a few minutes. We got so much that we are going to talk about, and I want to make sure that we are ready so that we can get to all of those things that are pertinent in the news. The news is ever evolving, like almost every minute. And but one of the first things that I want to talk about is this young man, Nolan Wells. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old that went out on a trip, with some of his friends, and he was with some white friends, and he was the only one who did not come back, and his parents are asking for a full investigation. But I'm going to bring on the program with us former Cook County Board President Todd Stroger. And you were the alderman of, was it the 8th Ward?
That's right, the mighty 8th Ward.
The mighty 8th Ward. All right. Okay. All right. How you doing?
But, Mark, my longest job was state rep. I was state representative for 9 years. That's the longest job I ever had in my whole life.
Really? I didn't realize that you were a state representative.
Yes,
I did not realize that.
They're like mushrooms. They're at the bottom and in shadows.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But you got to get the work done.
Yes. A lot of people don't put a lot of when they're in the city, they don't put much faith in, I shouldn't say faith. They don't look at the state representatives and senators as being a job that gets a lot of things accomplished. But in reality, the state sends money to the cities, and the reps and senators have some say in how that is done.
Well, not only that, the state, the legislature makes up all of our state laws and state statutes, which the villages have to tailor their ordinances to state policy. So I think that they're all interconnected.
They are. When I was a rep, the map was drawn by the Republicans. So my area was very compact, and it included the 6th Ward, the 8th Ward, the 10th Ward, and part of the 7th Ward, yes. And now the reps go out, way out, like my rep goes out to Lansing. And you get a different feel or they treat you differently out in the smaller villages because you are their connection to the state. Where here, the mayor is so powerful that even if you do bring something there, people think it was the mayor's office.
Right, right. Well, I guess yeah, because the villages certainly need that that support coming from the state because um, they don't have the revenue base that say Chicago would have.
Correct. So they may have a small department that uh, will do maintenance and stuff on streets and such, but they don't have, like I say,
Mhm.
the revenue to actually keep that without some support from the state.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right. Well, listen, we're going to start. We're going to start with our federal, and then we'll work our way back to our homeland here. And the big news is that Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Trump ally and the foreign policy hawk, died 2 days after his 71st birthday. And I was watching all of the news. I got the news in the wee hours of the night because my normal every other week co-host Monroe Anderson sent it to me. I was asleep, but it went off and it woke me up
Woke you up.
in the middle of the night that Lindsey Graham had passed. Then I turned on the news and I started watching some of the tributes coming in, and I wrote a post that I will not be having a tribute to Lindsey Graham because I see Lindsey Graham as a person who was in public office, and I see him as nothing more than a war hawk, racist, and an evil person. I did not see, in terms of his legislative policies, and especially as it relates to black people, but I didn't see him as a consistent person. I saw him as a person who was like a chameleon. Whoever was in power at that time, he wanted to be in the room, so he adjusted himself to be wherever he could be in the room to support his agenda. But he was somebody that I saw legislatively as a dangerous, dangerous person. And then in particular to watch him when he was, had thrown his hat into the ring to try to win the Republican nomination in 2015 or 2016, called Donald Trump for what he actually is,
Yes.
and then only to watch, right, and then to only watch him completely become a complicit lapdog for Donald Trump and his policies. So I don't have anything good to say about Lindsey Graham whatsoever, regardless of the maybe one or two times that he may have voted for some bipartisan bill or something. But I'm sure that any of those bills that he may have bipartisanly supported heavily, heavily, heavily favored him and his allies.
No, I totally agree. I had a Facebook friend say something about if you have nothing good to say about someone after they die, then don't say anything. And I totally disagree with that. I mean, you have to tell the truth of who people are. And I agree with you. He was a war hawk. He was a windsock. If the wind blew right, then that's where he was. If the wind blew left, that's the way he went. Uh, and he definitely stated all the negative things about Donald Trump. And then as soon as Donald Trump was in power, all of a sudden he becomes Donald Trump's greatest champion, and is pretty much speaking straight out of his mouth. And uh, I am not a big fan of the southern states. You know, they don't really do a lot for people, and they don't believe in doing anything for people. And I think that's why he lasted so long. Uh, we've seen a lot of bad senators and reps come from the South, and he definitely was on that list.
Well, I thought without question that he represented that Southern strategy, white supremacy, white supremacists, dominant controlled. Now, he certainly was able to um, mask it for some people to not see, I guess, see it clearly. But I was never I was never fooled by who Lindsey Graham was. And this idea that people think that you can't tell the truth about people after death. Um, I, I completely disagree with it. There's nothing biblical about it whatsoever. There's nothing. We're not giving a eulogy. We're not speaking at
No, we're not.
his funeral. We're talking about the policies that he supported that were detrimental to the Commonwealth. It was detrimental to the Commonwealth. This man loved the idea of going to war. I mean, he almost salivated at dropping bombs as though it was some sort of G.I. Joe game. And it's not a G.I. Joe game. You're talking about killing women and children and blowing up people, hospitals. And this man was in favor of dropping bombs. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu was, such a lover of Lindsey Graham, because he was always in favor of going to a war. And he conflated how war and peace, which I don't know how anybody conflates war and peace. War and peace.
I don't. And if you listen to what Donald Trump is saying right now, he is talking about basically trying to bomb Iran into the Middle Ages, and he's like, we're dropping bombs here, we're dropping bombs there. Just as you're saying, there are people who get affected by those bombs, and people die, and their sons and husbands die, and that has never been a part. We have to be the dominant force, and sometimes our people die, and that just does not seem to be part of the equation.
Well, yeah, Black people are always the first on the front lines to pay the ultimate price, and always last to receive the kinds of benefits that they should receive, or even in recognition of paying the ultimate sacrifice. I've never been in the military. My dad served in the military. I had a brother who served in the military, served in the Navy. But people like Lindsey Graham. When I heard that Lindsey Graham was gone, I certainly had maybe a moment of condolences for his family. But I'm not saddened that Lindsey Graham is not around to inflict the kind of carnage and harm that he promoted. That I'm not sad about.
Right. That's exactly how I feel. He was not doing, I would say, the average citizen any good. And, if he's not there to cause more harm and really to tell lies from the administration, because he loved just talking about how Donald Trump is this, that, and the other thing, and you and I'm sure, just don't see it.
Well, and even though you and I would never see, and I don't see how anybody sees anything that he did good. And if somebody sees that he did good, obviously they support his white supremacy. And I listened to some of the interviews that they were doing down in South Carolina, and some of the interviews, obviously, all of the interviews that they did of people who were black people, they were not a favor of Lindsey Graham, and uh, a fair number of white people uh, did not have kind things to say about Lindsey Graham. Now, there was one person who thought that Lindsey Graham was the best thing since ICE, but you know, I'm clear on what people who agree with him and thought that he was the best thing is ICE because he represented their their belief of that Southern strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am, and I said in my post that I don't wish death on anybody, although I've come very close to that on this current president that we have. While I certainly don't wish that, but I'm telling you that there are people like Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, and a few other people who I think that are serving the Mike Johnsons and the Ted Cruz. These are people who are what I would call legislatively dangerous people serving in very influential, powerful positions.
They are very powerful positions. We don't see uh, any checks and balances in this administration at all. Well, occasionally the Supreme Court will say, "Yeah, we don't like this," but uh, they're ruling about how the president pretty much can do whatever he wants, and no one can convict him on anything. Is kind of crazy in itself. But for the most part, if the Democrats take the House and Senate in the midterms, it will help to neuter this ridiculous regime.
Well, and I think that I said last week that even though we are largely controlled now here in Illinois, and we can't just take that for granted, right? We can't take it for granted because we have served under Republican administrations. Governor Ryan was a Republican. We served
Edgar,
under Jim Edgar, and we served under
Jim Thompson.
Jim Thompson. Those were the Republican governors during the time that I've been here. So that was over in the last 40 years that I've been here, and of course we've had Pat Quinn for just was he there 2 years or a year or so that he serves out the remainder of Blagojevich's term?
Well, he served like 5 years because he won the election and then he ran for re-election, then lost.
And he lost his re-election.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
I was not a Pat Quinn fan. I think he is part of that whole liberal. We want to change things and we want to take things away. But generally, when they take things away, it's once somebody of color gets in power, and they're like, "Well, we don't do that anymore." And so the advantages you had in having an office kind of go away. And I'm always mad at Pat Quinn for pushing getting rid of the legislative scholarships because it literally affected people's areas and how many people could actually go to universities.
So he ended legislative scholarships.
Yes, and his take is legislators shouldn't be doing that, but your legislative scholarship was given to somebody in your area. So let's say that in Inglewood, people are trying to get scholarships to go to school, and now they have to go through ISAC, Illinois Scholarship, something. Uh,
Mhm.
ISAC has to look at everybody, and they're going to be like, well, this guy's a C student. We're not going to give him a scholarship. But if a legislator looks at him and says, we interviewed you, you seem to be a hard worker. You don't have to be an A student to go to school. We're going to give you a chance. And they would give them a 1-year scholarship to go to school, prove they could make it. And then they come back. If they pass, they come back and ask for another year. So that happened throughout the state. Now it's more selective. And if it's more selective, that means only the top people are really going to get to go. And I'm truly a believer of education is for everybody. Everybody should get a chance.
Well, certainly they should have an opportunity if that's what they, want to do. So somebody, just because they don't have, the money, should not have an opportunity to educate. I think that education we should have free public colleges, just like we have free public schools. So I think that we're still so far behind the times. But I think that again, that's one of those things that I think that is a part of that white supremacy that is intentional to make education very difficult to get for certain people.
Well, they don't want their money going to you. I mean, it's that simple. Ronald Reagan pretty much put it that way. And it wasn't just about Black people for him. It was about people who thought outside the box. Because he stopped it in California, because you used to have free university could take you and the state would pay for it. And he stopped that in California. And then when he got to be president, he worked on it. And, and then they worked against affirmative action and sued Michigan, which was one of the leaders in trying to get diversity in their school. And everything's gone to crap since.
Well, of course, when they saw post World War II, when the GI Bill was out, and of course there was a 20-year study on the GI Bill, and when it came back to find that we got a $7 return for every dollar that we spent on the GI Bill by sending people to college, sending people to trade schools, and getting people to be more productive and prepared, that those people actually paid more into to the tax base. So for every dollar that we spent in the GI Bill, we got $7 back. What do? They cut the GI Bill because it was helping too many Black people.
Yeah.
And so, that's where there goes. This idea of that they don't want their money going to me, I think we're all paying into it, and disproportionately, I think we pay disproportionately more than most people into the tax base and get the least.
Well, I look at things from when John Wayne gave his interview to Playboy, and I think it was 1973, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing this, he said that until the Black people get their stuff together, I don't think we should give them anything. I think he was speaking for like 90% of white people when he said that. And I don't think the percentage has dropped very, very precipitously. Probably at least 70% still feel that way.
No, I think that ever since Barack Obama was elected as the president of the United States, I think that there has been a reawakening of Black people, that white supremacy has never died. It never got, race relations never got better in this country, as some people had fooled themselves to thinking that white supremacy it somehow rescinded in this country. It never rescinded.
Well, I think people think that because sundown towns are over, that and you can go places, that they want you to live in that place. No, they don't. As soon as you stop shopping, they want you to leave.
Right. or you can come down there and spend your money, but they certainly don't want you to live or to work. I think it was John Johnson. I read a story when I came to Chicago that John Johnson, who was the creator of Ebony Jet, bought a condo in one of those high rises down there in the, near the Gold Coast. And when he was moving into he was standing out in the hallway. And so his neighbor was coming home, and she asked him, because she thought that he was one of the movers. And she asked him who was moving in that unit. And he told her, I'm moving into that unit. And she said, you're moving to this unit? And he said, yeah. She said, well, I'm moving out. And he said, well, do you know who I am? I'm John Johnson. She said, I don't care who you are. I don't want to live next door to any blacks.
Right.
So he ended up buying her. Right. He ended up buying her place and combining both the units. But the point is that there is white supremacy. And I think Jim Brown is one of those who put it there. White supremacy is a system. And I think and agree with him that it is more prevalent and more dangerous now than it has ever been. White supremacy is about power and control, and where it might not be as overt, right? But there is still this ideology that white supremacy means that we are the dominant people, and whatever you do as a black person or as a person of color, you do it because we give you permission to do it, or we are your validators.
Well, I totally agree with you. And I think, so I was in college. I was in Louisiana when David Duke ran for the governor of the state of Louisiana. David Duke was a Ku Klux Klan member of some kind of high standing. And the things that Charlie Kirk was saying with Turning Point, it should have been the same year. I mean, he spoke the same way that David Duke did. But now people are like, well, he's just telling the truth and debating. If people can't dispute what he says, then it must be true. Now, for one thing, he was talking to the kids who weren't prepared for that. And he's been preparing for this forever with hundreds of thousands of dollars thrown at him. So he could be prepared to win a debate with a college student who just walked up to a microphone.
Right. Well, and I think that people having to understanding what people's lived experiences are and what they're born into, and white people were born into this position of privilege, right? When they start talking about, well, what about reverse racism? There is no such thing as reverse racism. There's no such thing as there's no such thing as reverse racism. There's no such thing as a black supremacist. Black people don't have the power and the privilege to do to white folks what white folks systemically are still doing to black folks and to other folks, right? So nor do black people have the desire, even if we did have the power that white folks have. Black folks are not interested, nor do we have that desire to do to white folks what white folks were born into doing, and what their fathers were responsible for doing, to work, a people for 246 plus years without a paycheck. And then, they signed the Emancipation Proclamation and send people out into a capitalistic society. The only group of peasants that they send into a capitalistic society without any capital
Right.
Um,
You got to start
you
with
know,
zero.
right. But it also speaks to the greatness of what Black people are, because we started from nothing. And when you see what we have been able to build to this point, it just shows you the greatness of who we really are. But it also, I
Well,
always
isn't
use
that
sports
why the
is,
president is trying to take people's names down and to strike anything that talks about slavery or black people at all positively?
oh yeah, without question. They like to use this as though this tag, though, we shouldn't be telling about, um, you know, slavery or talking about slavery or those things that happen in the past. But I think it's more than that. I think it is about not wanting to identify and recognize that everything that they are benefiting from today came off of the backs of our ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
of the works, and that they are still benefiting. The wealth that they are benefiting from today did not come as a result of anything that they built. In fact, we are here, and as a result of it, because they couldn't do it. That's why they went and cooked up this scheme to bring millions of slaves, people over here, because they couldn't till the land. They couldn't build the infrastructure that they now enjoy, that they believe somehow now that, we got it now. We are in control of it. But if you got rid of every Black person in America, America would completely collapse. Would never be able
Well,
to
I agree.
survive. Right.
Well,
So
they would not be against part of that because, uh, one of the greatest employers of black people is like the federal government, and they are trying to destroy the federal government because it helps so many other
right.
people. All those people that they fired at the beginning of the term, I want to say it was 30% of them were black women, and that's, I guess, because black women are one of the most educated, or the most educated group in the nation, and they
Mhm.
just like, you guys go home.
Yeah, and I think the numbers of people, we don't know what that exact number is, but we certainly know that Black women disproportionately in all of these federal cuts, um, were fired from their livelihoods and their jobs at a much greater rate than anybody else. I
Yes,
think the number of Black women is somewhere around 600,000 Black women that actually lost their federal jobs.
yes, that's a large city in America.
Yes, yes, it is, and that's a not only is it a large city, but it's a whole lot of gross domestic product that has been impacted and impacting a whole lot of communities. But like every other type of disadvantage, we have always found a way to overcome it and to bounce back. And I know that somebody is saying, well, when are we going to have to, when are we, when is it time for us to stop having to bounce back? Well,
Right.
I don't know that anybody can pinpoint a time, but I can certainly say that if this is not a lesson, if this is not a lesson for every one of us of why it is so important for us to engage in the political process and to organize to influence the political process, I don't know that we'll ever learn it. I don't know that
No,
we'll ever learn
you're
it.
right. Yes, yes, but
Yeah.
I
Because
think
we're
I
getting a
think people
master
are awake.
class.
But I think people are awake. I'm not sure, but I think they are. Yeah, and we'll find out in the midterms, I think.
Yeah, we'll find out if people show. I certainly think that you hear more people even younger people. You have more people are talking about it, and you hear people who were not as interested in, discussing what's going on, that finding that it's important to pay attention. So I think in that sense, it's good. Now, hopefully that translate into having explosive numbers going to the polls, because they are still doing everything that they can, the Trump administration, trying to impact and literally trying to make sure that they steal an election. Because if it's close, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that it is not close. We have to do the same thing that they did in Venezuela. Was that Venezuela? Where the election was at such a landslide that they couldn't even possibly cheat or try to steal it. I think it was Venezuela, wasn't it?
I think you're right.
Or was it? Yeah. So
they just threw somebody out there.
Or
either
not.
that or maybe or Poland. It wasn't the Poland.
Yeah.
They also tossed one of these crappy guys out.
But I think that's what our strategy is, and I think for us here in where we are in this region, obviously we have to make sure that our people are registered to vote. We have to make sure that our people who are registered make sure that they check their registration to vote. But we also have to we're going to have to spread our tentacles into those people that we know down in those southern states to make sure that that they are registered to vote, and then they know where they have to go vote. Because I think that's what the strategy is going to be. The same thing that they did in Texas is where they changed the voting polls where people had to go. There were people, I don't know what the number was, but there were people who went to their standard or their traditional voting polls only to be told that they were supposed to go somewhere else, and they had to go somewhere else to vote. And they were able to sue and get a judge to allow for the polls to stay open for another 2 hours.
Oh.
But unfortunately, Ken Paxton shut that down because he's a secretary of state. So he was able to get it shut down by the Supreme Court. So there are a lot of votes that did not get counted that could have made the difference in terms of who would be the nominee between Jasmine Crockett and Tallarico. So we have got to make sure that that is the case all around the country, because I believe that that is going to be one of the tactics that they are going to use to try to manipulate the election.
Well, Mark, I think that is that lends itself to one of the problems that we have, I think, as Black people in America, is that we have lost connection with each other. We are not as tight a community as we had been in the past, and in that we are not part of organizations. You learn things, you learn what's going on in the world. You form some kind of alliances by being part of something. So our greatest harm, probably in the last 150 years or something, was the NAACP, and people have kind of thrown that to the wayside, and they look at the Urban League, which the Urban League's a good thing, but there's nothing like having a strong lawyer, and those lawyers go to the polling places and help you if there's trouble, and after they sue. So we have kind of lost our lifeline to our lawyers. While when I was an elected official, groups like MALDIF, the Mexican American Defense League, man, they were around in everything that was being done, trying to help their community get places. We can't be islands into ourselves, and I think we just have too much of that going. And in all things, even like with the elected officials I see around here, that they prefer to fight each other and try to, you know, I want to wear 3 hats. I want the hat that he has, and so I hate him. Oh, I mean, how do you get anything done if the only time you are friendly to someone is when the cameras are on? You know?
Right. Right. Well, I believe that our success as a people is when we are organized collectively. When we
Yes.
have a corporate collective agenda, we're basically undefeatable. We're undefeatable because our vote is the vote in many cases that determines the election. It might not be the majority in most cases, might not be the
Hmm.
majority, but we are the difference between someone prevailing or losing. And when we understand that leverage that we have now here in Illinois, and certainly in this major metropolitan where we are here in Chicago and Cook County, I went and FOIA'd all of the registered voters in the wards where we live so that we could determine what our numbers are in Chicago. In Chicago, we are still, even though we've lost population of 200,000 people, but then when I went back and looked at history, we've been losing population for more than 40 years.
Oh yeah,
But we
I
lose
think we lost
population.
our first congressman. I can't remember if it was 1970 or 1960, but we've lost one every 10 years. Yeah.
Right. So we lose population. However, that being said, we still are the largest single voting block of any ethnic group in Chicago as of to date. We still are. In Cook County, we have about a little more than almost 1.5 million registered Black people. Nobody can win an election in Chicago or Cook County without getting the plurality of the Black vote. If you don't get 80% of the Black vote, you don't prevail. If you're running for a citywide or a countywide office, or even if you're running for a statewide office, you have to get the plurality of the Black vote, which drove me to saying the one thing we've never done, we've mobilized, right? We've mobilized and, we've had organizations, but we've never organized our own union of a voting block. We've never done that. We've never
Mhm.
organized in that way. Not even nowhere, not even in the country. We've never done it. So, and I know that it is getting us to have a different mindset, right? We have to have a different mindset. But if we ever develop that, here as a model in Chicago, that would be a model for the rest of the country of just how powerful we are. Now, everybody else knows how powerful our vote is. White folks know how powerful our votes are. People who don't like us know how powerful our voting power is.
Right.
They know it. Uh, and there are some people who look like you and I that are in political office know how powerful our voting strength is, except for some way, somehow, we collectively have not recognized the power of if we were to unionize our own individual voting block. Now, I've said this over and over that if we were to get 100,000 Black people, just 100,000, which is a very small number compared to the numbers that we had. So if we were to get 100,000 of us that band ourselves together and we started determining seats, whether it be an aldermanic seat, state representative seat, or a state senator seat, if we made an example out of just maybe 2 or 3, that would change the trajectory of how people who are in political office respond to us. Because they now know that we have the power to determine not the party, right? We're Democrats. But I don't believe that the Democratic Party should be the sole voice to tell me or you who our candidate should be, and you don't come and talk to me or you.
Oh, yes, right.
But they know that they can do that now because we are as disorganized as we are.
Yes, I totally agree. When I was in Springfield, I remember, I think it was Dan Rutherford saying to me, Dan was a Republican from, I forgot, Bloomington, I think, or Pontiac, one of those bigger cities. And he said, I really admire the Black Caucus because we tended to uh, vote together on issues. You know, we get together and say we're all going to do this, and everyone will go out and do that. Uh, so people notice when you are band together, and you know they have to respect it, and you know they're not going to run over you. And when I was in Springfield, what I was unique, not just because my father was the president of the county board, but also the state senator was part of our organization. The alderman who was the budget chairman was part of our organization. So they knew that my voice was a voice that carried more than just me. So they had to respect that. And as you say, and that's because we were, like I say, organized. And if we organized and actually said, you know, this is what is important to us, this is what we expect, then they have to look at you differently.
And that's in all of us, right? Look, we have 22 black state representatives today and 10 black state senators and 4 United States Congress people and 20 black aldermen, a black mayor, and Cook County Board president. You know, we have all these people that are black that are in these positions. And this didn't just, this wasn't always. This just happened over the past 35 years that we have these increased numbers, right?
Right.
However, most of them are controlled by the corporations. So most of them capitulate to the whims of the corporations, not necessarily to their constituents. And the reason why they don't, they're not so afraid of the constituents is because the constituents are, some of them are mesmerized. I say to people all the time, stop celebritizing politicians. You respect the people who are in positions of representation, but stop celebritizing them because they work for us. And we need to, make them earn their keep. And in terms of earning their keep, that their governance and their representation has to reflect more of what it is that our communities want and need, as opposed to somebody who is a corporation that they tend to vote towards policies that are more advantageous to corporations.
I agree, but I also think that this is America, and the most important thing to most Americans seems to be money. And when you have money, it speaks volumes. I used to look through people's D2s back in the day. I don't do that anymore. I'm just, I don't know. I just don't do it. But you could name like 6 people in the whole state who had more than $200,000 in their campaigns chest, and
Right.
those people listen to because they're like, man, he got enough money to run against me. And you're also able to spread that out to other people. You know what made Barack
Right.
Obama uh, such a formidable candidate when he ran for president was that when he was the U.S. senator, he was a rock star because he was so unusual to white people. There was a black man from Harvard, right? And so he could go across the state. He'd be the headline for somebody else's fundraiser, and all these people would come to see Barack Obama. So when he ran, those all those people he helped get elected, they were in his corner. Uh, so even though we downplay it sometimes, money is very important, and it puts
Right.
you in the game. When you give some money, and people know that you have, they do treat you differently.
Well, that's very understandable, and certainly I understand that, and that's the problem. That is the problem that we have, is that we well we I see it in two different ways. We don't have the billionaires that can, write the big checks, right? We don't have that person. But what we do have is we have the numbers. And if we
Well, I will
if
say we
we
have a lot of millionaires who could write some good checks, but they
yeah,
are
but they
so
don't.
caught up in the system. In the old days when I was like 8, they actually lived around us because they had no choice. But
Right.
now they don't live in the community anymore, and I don't they don't participate in that same manner.
Right. Right. Well, the millionaires and the big millionaires, black millionaires of today have become uh compromised. I'll put it that way. They've become compromised, and though we share the same skin, we don't have the same social construct that they had, say, when we had the John H. Johnsons around, the Johnson
Right.
Publishing, and those guys around back then, and because those guys became millionaires, but they became millionaires by taking a chance of hawking their mother's furniture in Johnson's cases, or really, working hard to build something up. They didn't have access to the types of financing outlets that some of our current, you know, people of wealth that don't have a social conscience. They just don't have the same social conscience,
Right.
that created the opportunity for Merrill Washington to become mayor. It was our black millionaires that seeded the campaign fund, right?
Correct.
They seeded the campaign fund. Um, and Harold Washington said, if you want me to do this, I need 50,000 new registered voters and $250,000. Well, they got 100,000 registered voters and $500,000 almost in no time,
Hmm.
because so that infrastructure was there. But even though we don't have that level of consciousness, right? We don't have the people who are the multi millionaires here, black millionaires, that has that same consciousness. They really don't. They are living what I call the intoxication of individualism, which is a
Hmm.
cancerous to the death of our people. But
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe that even without them, that if enough of us would commit ourselves to saying we're going to build our own infrastructure of building our own block. That's why I started 10 by 10 to win. I still think that that is the model for our liberation. That if we were to build that, right? If we were to build that here, let's just say in Chicago, in Cook County, that we got 200,000 people. Let's say we got 200,000 people, which works out to be about 18% or something like that of the registered Black voters in Chicago and Cook County. 200,000 people that put $10 a month into our own independent campaign fund. That's $1 million a month, right? That's $1 million a month. That's a lot of money that we now have to influence public policy. Because I said that we don't even have to win an election with having that many people in one group, that you have a representative, I don't know, somebody represents housing, somebody represents health, education, whatever. They go to meet with a state rep or state senator or mayor or a governor. When they're, like you said, when they're going to meet with that governor or that representative, they know that they're not talking to one person. They're talking to a person who is backed up by 200,000 other votes.
Yes.
Right? That's a real possibility and a real force that I believe that it is essential for us to figure out how to establish. And it also makes our representatives able to be a lot more independent of that they can operate with a little courage to be reflective, because it will make them independent, because they also know that if we have 200,000 people, that means that we've got enough votes in every district to determine a person's seat. Because all it takes is 5,000 votes to swing an election one way or the other.
That sounds about right to me.
Right. So if we had 5,000 people in, just say, every district where our representatives are from, that gives us enormous influence and leverage that I don't care how much an individual check, millionaire was, or billionaire, whoever. When you have the numbers of votes, because, you got a billionaire, you got a few of them, but you got a whole lot more voters than you do of people who are multi-millionaires who could write big checks and buy off one or two, right?
Right.
So, some way, somehow, we have to figure out how we leverage that to build that. We build that kind of infrastructure. I say that you don't even have to pick up the phone to call the governor. You don't have to pick up the phone to call the mayor. You don't have to pick up the phone to call. They'll be calling you. They'll be calling you, asking for an audience, because they now know that you have at least 5,000 of my constituents as a part of this block.
Right. These are concerned people.
Right.
Not just anybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. It changes the entire it changes the entire climate politically. It changes the entire climate because I contend that Black people should be running Illinois with the numbers that we have and where we're concentrated, because the way that we are situated in Illinois is unlike most parts around the country, or Black communities around the country. Don't have a concentrated number of Black people that actually determines all of the major elected offices. The
Mhm.
governor is determined. The mayor is determined. The Cook County Board is determined. They're all determined by the black vote.
Hey, I can tell
That
you, and somewhere in the last 10 years, the Republicans, because I know some guys who talk to them, the Republicans have tried to use this strategy at least twice. One was with Rauner, and it wasn't trying to get more votes. It was trying to get black people in Cook County to not vote at
yes,
8 to 10%. Yeah,
correct, correct, because they understood the math. They
right.
understood that if we can peel off a number of people not to participate, then we could prevail, because they know that we are the difference makers in anybody being able to prevail.
Yes.
Now, Rauner did that in the first time that we made that mistake of allowing for him to win, because we had some people who um, have what I call misplaced frustration,
Hmm.
thinking that you jump out of the frying pan, go jump right into the fire.
Right.
And that's what we
I'll
did.
think it better.
That's exactly what we did with Bruce Rauner, right? That, about what he got about 13 or 14% of the black vote when he
I
first got
can't
elected,
remember
or
now,
something like that.
but I believe though. I can believe it because
Yeah.
he had some people out here really working for him.
Yeah, he was spreading some dollars. He was spreading some dollars, including Corey Brooks from what is that over there
I,
on 67 66
I
and
can't remember the name of his church, but King Drive. Yeah.
right, right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So but he hasn't learned from his ignorance yet.
Well,
Yeah.
they are
So
still they're still giving him money. So I know when he throws an event to fundraise for his community group, that the Republicans still help him.
yeah. Well, apparently not they hadn't helped them or not, because he had to go walking around trying to raise money to finish that building, and he's still not finished with it. Even
Yeah, but
though they're a lot closer.
I'll have to give him credit that he actually got that building going. That they put up a structure, even if it isn't finished yet. That was
Yeah.
quite the task. Even though I don't agree with his politics, he has put something together and made it work. And
Oh,
if he can finish it, it would be a great thing for the community.
well, without question, I'll give him credit for that. I'll give him credit for being able to accomplish that. He almost lost his church, because the first time that he supported Bruce Rauner, a great deal of his members walked out. So
Yeah, I
became
heard
very
that with him and some other pastors who supported them.
yeah. Well, Meeks supported him.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
Meeks
got the
supported him.
chairmanship he wanted.
Yeah, and he lost a number of his members. Um, I've never really been a fan of Meeks anyway. So, but again, I think that we can. There's no question about that. We are a bright people and we are talented people, but we are so.
Mark, I am going to be moving around a little bit because my cat has discovered I'm here, and he will step on
Okay.
my laptop and make it go away. So you keep talking.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's all right. But I just think that Todd, I think that it is incumbent upon us that to understand that more than any other time, that we have to find a way to coalesce the people We have to find a way to coalesce the people, because it is the only way that we are going to make our representatives be more representative of the interest of our community.
That is the
So,
only way we have ever made the hay in this country, is when we've stuck together.
yeah,
I totally agree.
yeah. So, we have to we have to find that chord to be able to do that. I have to believe that we can pull together 20%, 15%. We could pull together 15% of our people, because if we pull together the 15%, you know what ends up happening?
What?
That 15% becomes such a big deal that the other 85% is going to certainly be interested to see what's going on over there, because
Right.
to see black people organized, is a very powerful thing, because we've never done it. We've never done it. We've mobilized around some important issues. We've mobilized, but we've not institutionally organize ourselves in the fashion that I'm talking about. I saw a speech the other day that I had never seen before by Stokely Carmichael. And this was a speech that he did at some university back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And Stokely Carmichael said then, he said, the biggest problem with our people is disorganization. And he didn't say it just here in the United States. He said that we have never organized ourselves anywhere in the world.
Mm.
When I saw that, I started to say, he's right. We've never been organized. We've mobilized, which is very different.
Right.
But we've never institutionally organized ourselves, that we made the determination on who is going to be our representatives. Now, this is not to suggest that, I'm not with the whole third party thing. I think that that's just kind of a waste of time, because it's never worked, right? It's never worked. It's only helped one of the other two parties.
Yes, they've all been short-lived.
Right, very short-lived. So, but what I'm saying is organizing ourselves to making both the parties work better in our interest. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but what we can do is we certainly can redirect how the one party that we have gotten the most gains that we've gotten, and by far the party that we have gotten the gains that we've got is the Democratic Party, period. Right?
Yes.
That is not to say that the Democratic Party is on some sort of pedestal. I don't want people to be to misunderstand. But what you do is you don't blow the system up. You make the one that you're working with better than it is. So what I'm simply saying is, we put together, and I'm using the number of 200,000 people. 200,000 people will change the complexity of the Democratic Party here in Illinois, for sure.
Oh, yes.
And I believe we can influence the Democratic Party nationwide with that kind of organizing.
Well, yes. If like Illinois is a state that others look at. I mean, they like to see what's going on here, and if it's positive. I mean, even like things that didn't work. A lot of states were waiting for Illinois to write their laws on marijuana, because they thought they would make good laws and they just follow them. It didn't work out that way, but
right.
The point is that they were waiting because we are who we are.
Right. I mean, people pay attention to what's going on in Illinois. They pay attention to, first of all, they pay attention to Chicago, and by extension, they pay attention to what's going on in Illinois. Plus the fact we have more black people elected in significant positions of office than any other state in the country. Nobody rivals what we have here in Illinois now. Not Philadelphia.
Even though I bash the elected officials for not being close enough, I will say that the Black Caucus has tried to put points that they want to see happen together, and they've been working off of that. And they even met with the city council to see if they can work on some issues together. So I see that as a positive. I think they ought to work on their marketing a little more, let people actually know that they're in the fight, because then people tend to want to support you when they know you're actually doing something, you know?
Well, I think that's you're right, and I think the messaging part of it is a failure on their part, and it seems that when there seems to be a huge disconnect once they get into office, there seems to be this reservoir between the constituents and the representatives. That communication gap creates a huge problem. And so, because the average person is not going to know what you're doing, even though you may be working on some great things, the average person is not going to know what you're doing. Yes. For example, I consider myself, and certainly to be somewhat of attentive and astute, but I'm working on with a group of other people. We're working on trying to get the Certificate of Innocence bill amended. There's a young man by the name of Kevin Jackson who served 23 years, 4 months in prison for a murder that he had absolutely nothing to do with. The appellate court finally heard his case, and the appellate court said that it was one of the most egregious cases that they had ever seen. And they ordered him released from prison even before they released their written decision. They ordered him released from prison. And one of our committee people heard his story and brought him before 10 by 10 to win. She came to me and she said, we should listen to their story and listen to their attorney, and we should support them. So we invited them to come, and the attorney gave us the story. I read the decision, and we voted that we were going to support him. Now, I am a licensed attorney, right? I don't practice, but I went to his first certificate of innocence hearing. And I was astonished to learn that even though you are exonerated of a crime that you did not commit, even though you're exonerated of it, you then have to go back before the court and you have to prove to the court by a preponderance of evidence that you are innocent of that offense.
Yes. We had a meeting and we had someone come out and speak on this, and I thought that was the craziest thing I ever heard. So you're trying to change that so they don't have to go back to the court once it's determined. So
what we're trying to do,
the whole thing will happen. I'm guessing.
Yeah, what we're saying is that there are some cases. Well, first of all, the way that the Constitution is written and the way that the law is that if you get charged of a crime, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty of that offense. That's the law.
Yes.
Now, if the state proves that you and a jury finds you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, then you appeal. And you go before an appeal court, and the appeal court says, state, they reverse that decision or exonerate you from that decision, then that now means that you're no longer guilty of that offense. And to keep it consistent, it ought to mean that you are now been restored 100% of your citizens' rights because a court has exonerated you of that offense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way it ought to be. So now a court has exonerated you. You now have to go back and exonerate yourself again by the preponderance of evidence.
And the state's attorney can fight against it.
Well, this state's attorney is paying a private attorney, two private firms, $1 million to block his certificate of innocence.
Wow.
Because Eileen Burke says that she believes that certificate of innocence. This is crazy just hearing it. She says that a certificate of innocence should only be issued to a person who can prove that they are innocent by concrete, irrefutable evidence. So she was reversing the Constitution, which there is nothing in the Constitution that says that.
Mm-hmm.
So she's saying that you're not deserving of it unless you can prove that you are innocent. Now, in his case, the state is not going to retry him because they know that there is no evidence. Not only that, the judge lambasted the lower court for even allowing for this trial to go forward. The judge also admonished the state's attorney because the state's attorney wrote the statements that they coerced 4 witnesses to sign on to. So this is not a case of somebody who could be guilty or they were lost because the state lost because of some technicality. This guy had nothing to do with it. This guy served 23 years, 4 years in prison, and almost died in prison because they wouldn't get him the medical care that he needed to get. So I said all of that to say this. I live like this next door to LG Sims. LG Sims is the co-sponsor of a bill that has increased the compensation for people who've been wrongfully convicted and served time in prison from $15,500 to $50,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten that passed. I don't think it's been signed yet by the governor, but they got it passed.
Mm-hmm.
I've reached out to LZ a couple of times because I heard that he's working on this bill. I've not been able to get a return of phone call. And I live right next door to him. Now, I'm not going to go knock on his door because I think that, just because I live next door to you doesn't mean that I should go knock on your door, about doing some work. Understand? So I respect that. So, but my point is to what you were saying is that there is this disconnect between the constituents and our representatives. I don't know if there's like a little bit of defensiveness on the side of our representatives or what it is. But for our community, in my view, we don't have the luxury of individualism. We don't have the same luxury that white folks have to operate.
No,
we just don't have it. And so, in some cases, they think, well, they're against us anyway. No, we're not against you. I'm not against anybody unless that person is in office and they are working antithetical to what is in the best interest for the commonwealth of our community. I want for all of our representatives to be successful, but I measure success by what are you able to get done for the people that you represent.
Makes sense to me. Yes.
right? Now, in order for you to be successful, then there has to be a line of communication. As a representative, you need to know what's going on the ground, which means that you need to make yourself available to having some sort of infrastructure in place. Now, I have said that if I were an elected representative of, let's say, an alder person, I would set up in my ward that I represent some sort of mechanism for me to have a meeting in each part of the ward over some period of time regularly, whether it's once a month or something, so that I can speak directly to the constituency and hear from the constituency what their concerns are, what the issues are, and how I could use that leverage to then go back and talk with my colleagues in the Black caucus or community and say, hey, this is what's happening in the ward that I represent. What's happening in your ward? I will never forget this. When I was working with Sandy Jackson's ward office was on 71st Street and Yates. Leslie Hairston's ward office was on 71st Street and I think it was, if not Oglesby, the next street, Merrill. They were like 2 blocks apart, my point.
Right.
I asked Leslie, I said, have you ever been to Sandy Jackson's office? She said to me, no. Why would I go to her office? I thought that was the most astonishing thing that I had ever heard.
Well, everybody isn't on the same side. So I'll relay. So I'm the alderman. And I used to have, I cut our ward into 4 quadrants, and I'd have one every quarter, a meeting, like you're saying. And it made sense to me. But one day someone called us about something, and we were like, oh, no, this is a federal issue. You'll have to have somebody in the federal system help you. So we called Jesse Jackson Jr.'s office. Jesse Jackson Jr.'s person answered the phone and said to my chief of staff, Congressman Jackson doesn't get along with the alderman, so we can't help, and hung up. It's that kind of pettiness because they feel. But
guess what? You know what, Todd?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That could very well be. You and I could be elected officials, and I might not get along with you. But because I don't get along with you, should not abdicate my responsibility to working with you for the best interest of the people that we represent.
No, I totally agree. I thought it was crazy. I didn't understand it. If they called our office, we would have handled it. But politics is a cutthroat business. And at that time, Jesse Jr. was in the progressive camp, and the progressives did not like my father. So anybody in our camp, except probably for Donnie Trotter, because Donnie kind of played footsie with those guys, they weren't gonna do anything with us. I learned that in Springfield. I didn't realize just how divided we were until I went to something, and it was obvious I was not welcome because the progressives were running it. And that's what I tell Black people. You can be progressive, but you're not really in the progressive camp. You need to be in the Black camp because we're all Black. Like I said, I live in the Black Belt. The West Side's got their Black Belt.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand is how is any Black person not progressive?
Yes, just on his face. Yeah, that's right.
Just on his face. Just on his face, because progressive means progress for all.
Yes.
That's what it means to me, unless there's a different definition of progressive that I don't know about. So whatever that is, whatever that's why I fundamentally believe that what you're saying is true. That just because you see people who look alike does not mean that they're all working alike. And they're working to each other's disadvantage, really. So, and to the advantage of the majority, or in this case, of the other side. So that's why I think that it's even more pervasively important that the people have to be organized from the ground. That's the only way that's going to change the attitudes or the construct of the people who are actually in the representative offices. Is that they have to be forced to operate differently, or they have to feel like somebody said this to me that it makes a lot of sense. I can't remember who said it. That politicians respond to one of two things. They respond to people who can help them or hurt them. If you can't help them or hurt them, they ignore you.
Yeah, you have no use, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think that's where we have to be. And we got on this discussing. We never got to any of the issues. We got a couple of minutes left, so I want to talk about a couple of issues. What is your thought about Brandon Johnson? I don't even know if it's Brandon Johnson or whoever his advisors are that is proposing this congestive tax. Have you heard about it?
Well, I read a little bit about it. I hadn't heard that before until you mentioned it and brought it up. And what I it's something that I don't remember if they actually do it in New York, but I remember it was something that was talked about. Revenue is always an issue because everything, like I always say, government is just like us regular citizens. If inflation happens, the government is affected by it too. Prices go up, and so now they have to pay more. And they're trying to be creative without asking, to raise the property tax. Everyone's always afraid of the property tax. I can't remember the last time they raised the property tax because everyone feels like that's the third rail. So they're always trying to, and now I think they're trying to, how can we have a tax that doesn't affect the residents as much as it will affect people who come from outside the city into the city? It's a tricky thing. Basically, I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think anything that the mayor would propose would do him any good. He's already got.
Yeah, because I said he's already challenged. He's already challenged just by perception, right? He's already challenged just by pure perception that he's challenged. But I said that there's a couple of things that they've come out with. They've also come out with this surcharge on apartment owners that they want to charge, a $60 charge to every unit that you own. And I said to myself, I was asking, when did they ever bring any of the property owners in the room to have that conversation?
Yeah, I doubt if they did.
Right. So, I think that some of these things, I wonder who the heck does Brandon have around him that are his advisors?
I'm guessing, how the Heritage Foundation writes all these things that the the right.
And they send them out. Hold on right there. Let me do this. I got to close this out here,
Yes.
and then we'll come back to that conversation. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this week on The People Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio. I'll be right back here with you next week. Don't forget Black Women's Expo coming up July 31st through the 2nd. I'll be broadcasting live there. We're also 10 by 10 to win. We'll have a booth there, and we'll be doing voter registration. Make sure that you get your tickets and come on out to the Black Women's Expo, 31st annual Black Women's Expo. We'll see you all next week. All right. Todd.
Yes. I think just like the Heritage Foundation writes things and people on the right take their ideas and run with it, I'm guessing that they're taking ideas that are written by the Democratic Socialists of America, and they're trying to see if they can make that happen here.
Well, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. When I say it's a bad idea, it is a bad idea. And again, I've never served in a public office, but I've been actively engaged for a long time now. And I just fundamentally believe that it is always important to talk to people, to constantly talk to people. I know that, schedules are busy, but I believe that you have to constantly talk to people when you have ideas. Before you go making a public announcement about it or even saying that it's being proposed, why not go and have some conversations with people around the city or around the community so you can at least get some sort of feel from the people, or you can at least let the people weigh in on it. They might have some ideas. I think that, people can help you govern. Well, obviously you got to meet budget but you still, the people got to pay that money.
Yes.
And I believe that even if you have to do it, when you come to people and say, look, this is what our situation is. This is where we are. This is what we need to do. But you can't come to me and tell me that you have a shortfall. And now you're getting ready to give 5 gazillionaires $640 million because they can't fill up their office buildings. You're going to help them retrofit their office building to build affordable housing. That's very hard for people to swallow. Or that you're giving a failed project like Lincoln Yards $1.2 billion in TIFs funding that we don't know we don't know what the accountability of that money is. We don't know how much of that TIF went out.
Yeah, that's
or now you're getting ready to give $448 million in TIF funds to Project 78 over and above the 1.2 that you already gave to the first failed project.
So this is, I'm guessing, infrastructure costs.
This is what they're telling us is infrastructure costs. This is what they're telling us is infrastructure costs.
Okay.
But the problem with the TIF fund is because every mayor that has come in has changed the rules for the TIFs to operate whichever way they want to. They've changed the rules. Because when the TIFs first came in, Harold Washington brought them in. Harold Washington brought them in that they are to be used for, well, they use the term blight. I don't know what Harold's word was, but
blighted
they were supposed to be used blighted areas, right? Well, the first question is who blighted the area? who blighted the area, right? So, because I'm an anti-TIF person, because I believe the way that the TIFs have been bastardized, that they have just become a racist tool against our communities. We don't benefit from TIFs.
Well, TIFs are
So
are like a lot of things. Um, the people would complain to Mayor Daley, and rightly so, because he was the leader. Why aren't
right,
things happening in our area? And the answer was because you can't get the developers with money to do anything. They run from us. Uh, so when it comes to the TIFs, there's money in the TIF, but you can't get a developer to use it on pick some area. So when there's a big development that's South Loop downtown across the Madison, they take the money from TIFs that are surrounding and they send it all down to them. It I agree. That's a terrible system because it doesn't do what
right,
it's supposed to
right,
do.
exactly. So I'm doing a town hall actually on August the 20th at the Woodson Library on TIFs. My friend
Tom Tresser?
um, Tom Tresser is going to be with me because most people have no clue about how TIFs actually work
Yes.
and how they disadvantage you. Right? Most people don't have any clue.
Right.
Um, so so we're doing a town hall on August the 20th at the Woodson Library with Tom Trez. I've been working with Tom, off and on for a number of years. I've had him on when I was on WVON, and we were going to do some things back then, but whatever, we never got together for whatever reason. So we're going to be doing a town hall on the 20th because there's over $3 billion in the TIF fund now. Now,
Right.
to Brandon's credit, until now, he hasn't used that slush fund. But the idea of giving $640 million to 5 gazillionaires to really to bail their buildings out. That's really what this is. To bail their
It really
buildings
is.
out. Because
I think
so
they talk
well,
about capitalism so much, but this is not what capitalism is. When you get in trouble, we give you millions of dollars.
yeah. Right, we'll give you millions, but don't help some poor person who is losing their home, on the south side or or on the west side that may need just $50,000 would stop them from going into total bankruptcy. Don't help them, right? So
Right.
so but we're going to help people who are already millionaires and multimillionaires. We're going to help them bail them out. So when I read that we're going to give $640 million to 5 buildings, all on LaSalle Street, 5 buildings, we're giving $640 million so that they can renovate their buildings to build affordable housing. Now, you and I both know that there will not be any affordable housing to the tune of $640 million in those 5 developments.
I was wondering what affordable actually means.
Yeah. What does that even mean, affordable housing? What does that mean? To me, it means the person who earns enough money to be able to afford it. That's affordable housing. Right. So, and even if you're talking about helping people who are lower income, how are you going to build $640 million worth of affordable housing and you're going to somehow retrofit these buildings that are commercial buildings? They're not housing buildings. They're commercial buildings that cost goo gobs of money to retrofit those buildings to turn them into residential building.
Right. Right.
That's the same problem that they're having in New York.
Yeah, I would guess that they're having this problem all over the nation because I noticed when I used to travel some, I go to the city, Cincinnati, and all those, and New Orleans, they all look pretty much the same here. The area around the business district was being built, so I kind of assume that any problems that we have, that those guys are having the same problems.
Yeah, I mean, your business district is really your business district. So here is what I would do if I were the mayor. I would take every dollar that's in the TIF, and I would have my I would reach out to every alderman in on the south and west sides of Chicago to identify every multi-unit building that is vacant.
There's plenty of them.
Right. And to find the owners, to create a plan to where the city does a partnership with the owner, not taking the owner's building, but you do like a tax credit partnership with the TIP funds, that you go to the owner and you say, look, we're going to provide you with the funds to redevelop this building. The average, it costs about $75,000 a door to redo a building, a multi-unit apartment building, about $75,000 a door.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're going to put that money in, and we're going to help you get your building up. And this building, you have to have a management company to operate the building, and you have to maintain the rents at a certain level for at least 15 years.
Mm.
And that owner will get a check, right? A management company will manage it. It will manage it, lease it up, make sure that it's properly run and all that sort of stuff, and helping that owner. And that owner still maintains their building. They don't lose their building.
Right.
Now you're creating a partnership that you're still helping them to retain ownership and equity. You're revitalizing a structure that has been dilapidated for years, got it back on the tax roll. And you do that all around the south side and the west side. Now, that's a better way to use $3 billion to me than to putting it in pet projects, building Ferris wheels and helping people who are already wealthy people. Those people in those buildings downtown, let them do like everybody else. If they can't function, then the banks have to take a haircut just like everybody else does. And bring in developers and have them to put together a plan and redevelop those buildings. You don't need the government to bail rich people out. The government should be bailing out people who need to be bailed out. We could change the housing situation in Chicago on the south and west sides of Chicago by implementing some plan like that and helping people to retain their property. That's a win-win situation.
That sounds like a pretty cool plan to me. I mean, I pass a lot of multi-unit buildings that I'm like, why didn't somebody, why didn't somebody fix this up and brought in some tenants? And it could help change the look of communities. I agree with you.
Yeah, listen, I'm a private lender, and I put out somewhere between $15 and $20 million of private funds on the south and west sides of Chicago. I help small
Mark,
real estate.
Can I hold $20?
Can I hold sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So
I didn't know that was part of your
I'm in
business.
I'm in the real estate business. So I understand this. And to answer your question, what it is you have owners who have property. They've either inherited the property or they bought the property years ago, and they just don't have the wherewithal to improve the properties. They don't have the wherewithal to improve the properties, and they don't want to lose their properties. So they're barely hanging on.
Well, I watched.
This is what
I used to watch those shows where they flip houses. Don't people loan money to you for that kind of stuff? To fix things up,
yeah,
because they know you're going to get a certain amount once the unit is.
But right, but those but you're talking about people who are experienced people, and that they have some funds, and they don't want to go through the arduous task that they go through going through a traditional lenders, or they might have some bumps and scrapes that they can't get traditional financing. So they come to a guy like me who will say, okay, you've got some bumps and bruises, but you've got the wherewithal and you've got some money, so we can make this work. You'll put a certain portion in, I'm going to put a certain portion in, and you're going to pay me interest on my money for a certain period of time. You'll sell your property or do what you're going to do with it, get a refinance, and you pay me off. So it works. It works under those circumstances. Huh. But for what I'm talking about, these people need to have more of a traditional type financing, or certainly a low interest type loan and they also need the expertise, because they don't have the expertise. Mm-hmm. I have a situation where a woman, her husband died. He left her all of his property. She has no idea how to do it. None. So what I had to do is to help her get a property manager. So I helped her get a property manager to manage these properties so that the buildings can be properly run, and then she can maintain what her husband left for her, because otherwise she was going to lose it.
Right.
Because she just didn't know what to do. Right. So, but the city has the wherewithal, because the city has the ability to do this, as well as the city will certainly generate a return on it, because the city is getting a property that's off the tax roll, basically, and back on the tax roll, and creating much needed housing that is needed in the community. Mm-hmm. Redeveloping a property, that is a much better investment of tax dollars than what is being proposed to me. If I were the mayor, that's what I'd be doing. I'd contact every single alderman and please ask them to identify every multi-unit building that is in your ward that is shut down or, on the verge of shutdown. We would develop a plan. I would have, I would bring in we would develop and devise a plan to make that work. And I bet you it would be a tremendously successful plan. Because this idea, the Southwest Invest thing that they're doing.
Yes.
So they're building these buildings, and they're spending ungodly amounts of money building this building. They built a building on 79th and Exchange. And I think it's 42 units. They spent over $100 million building this building, which is ridiculous. It should have cost a third of that.
Well,
it should have cost a third of that to build that building. So while I like the idea of, constructing these things, but why not fix what we already have, make those beautiful, improve the block, improve the community, and you're saving or protecting wealth and equity of people who are in the community, rather than allowing for these conglomerates that don't live in the city that or these hedge funds that to come in and buying up all of these buildings and taking all of this revenue out of the city.
Mark, you sound like a policymaker. That's a pretty good idea. And you know, I like to see the mayor succeed, but I fear that his group that surround him are not very. They don't know what the hell they're doing. You know, they ain't never been in government, and they don't know how. And I've tried to get them to talk to the alderman man more. So these ideas you're talking about, I would bet dollars to donuts that they haven't vetted them with the alderman. You know, maybe a couple of their allies, and when they hit the, really hit the fan, it's going to be a lot of pushback, and they won't know if they have the votes to even pass these things.
That's why I think that I think that the biggest mistake that I see in public officials and this divide between the community is that they become isolated. They become isolated. I don't know if it's self-induced or if it's the people around them. I don't know what it is, but they become isolated that they're not willing to talk. I sat down with Brandon Johnson weeks before he announced that he was running for mayor. At that time, I was talking to him about doing something about photo enforcement. And I had given him the plan on advanced manufacturing that is working down in Mississippi. I said, we got 600 acres back here on the southeast side of Chicago that's shovel ready. It's already been remediated. That you can implement this same plan that's actually working in Mississippi, which is the poorest state, and in the poorest region of the poorest state, they have created more than 30,000 jobs, $20 billion in industry. They reduced the unemployment rate from 20% to just over the national average in less than a decade. And they call it the Golden Triangle. So I learned about this way back in like 2015 watching 60 Minutes. So I went and dug up the plan and got in contact with the people down in Mississippi and got a copy of it. I first gave it to Lori Lightfoot. They loved it. So they said. Did nothing with it. Then I gave it to Brandon Johnson. Said they loved it. Did nothing with it. Now he says that they're doing something. I said, well, where are you doing it? They're calling this data center that they're building out here, the CompuLab out on part of the U.S. Steel site, which I think is going to be a loser for the people because it's nothing more than a big data center. So between the city, the county, and the state, they're giving them $500 million to build this data center. And it's only going to bring 150 jobs.
Right.
And most of those jobs are going to be imported from some other state. They're not going to the people in the community. Whereas if you did something like the model of the advanced manufacturing plan, you create thousands of jobs, billions of dollars in industry, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue. Now you're expanding the tax base rather than going to the same group of people saying that you need some more money to meet your your budget.
Right.
I just don't understand where I don't understand why this is. I understand that governing is not easy. I know it. It's not easy. But it's certainly harder when you're unwilling to communicate with people who are actually on the ground that could give you some feedback and some ideas that don't want anything from you.
No, I
I don't know
understand.
what it is.
I gave him
I
a
just
couple of ideas myself that, like, boy, I think this would help the community and help your image. But I have not seen anything come of it. And you're right. Uh, I really don't want anything. No, I take that back. I would take something, but I'm not asking for anything. You know.
well look. Um, I don't need anything, right? I don't need anything, but I
Unlike
am not
you,
opposed.
I've got young children, and I need as much as I can get.
Yeah, I understand. But look, I don't think that there's anything wrong. I don't think that there's anything wrong with someone being compensated that is bringing an actual executable plan that is going to improve the Commonwealth. That's what governing is about, right?
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
think that that
wait. I take that back. That's what the left thinks. The right, not so much.
well, no, yeah, right, right, yeah. That group of people think something else. They
Yeah.
just think that all the largest is for them,
Yes.
uh, and that even though that the people pay 80% of what goes into the government, that they should have nothing to say about it. So, but I listen. I I think that overall Brandon is probably doing a decent job, probably.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that the the his messaging or the people who are that are responsible for his messaging are missing the mark terribly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me ask you
I agree.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me ask you this. What did you think when you heard about the news of Larry Snelling stepping down?
Oh, I just thought that that they come to a fork in the road, and uh, the superintendent wanted to have a more forceful approach to policing, and the mayor's people were like, "Nah, we don't want that." And the superintendent's been around a long time, and he can leave, so he left. That's what I think. That's what I think happened. Actually, I know a commander who's retired. Next time I see him, I'm gonna ask him what he thinks about this.
Yeah, because typically you don't have a superintendent that has been in there for less than a term, especially a new superintendent, resign midway through. Um, and I think that I think the public, um, I think the public is receiving Larry Snelling pretty well. Now, I had a problem with him just on one issue um, that he went along with the state's attorney on, but I think overall, I think the public receives him pretty well. Would you
No,
agree?
I agree. I think people thought he was doing a good job. He was responsive. Uh, uh, when he spoke, you felt like he was making sense, and he wasn't speaking down to you. And also, I think that the general public would like for the police to arrest people, not I don't mean like hitting people with nightsticks, but to arrest people when
Right,
things are out of hand.
right.
At least send some kind of message.
Yeah, I think that I believe it seems to me that in my moving around, I did not hear the kind of pushback on the Chicago Police Department under his leadership that we have heard in the past. I mean, it was one that was. So I think so. For me, it was very surprising. It was very surprising, and then my suspicious antennas went up that this was not. I mean, this is there was something else going on. You know, you've been on the force 34 years, but much of his time has been in the training academy. He hasn't been on the street a lot. Most of his time has been in the training academy. So for him to retire, that's what they're calling it, is very suspect to me.
I just look at it, and I could be wrong. As if I was in a position and I didn't need it, I didn't need the headache or the money, and I felt like I didn't have enough control over the situation, I'd leave instead of having a headache.
Well, first of all, I think that I go back to Harold Washington. Harold Washington said that you don't want your mayor running your school system, and you don't want your mayor running the police department. You have a superintendent of the police department, let them do their job, and you have a school board that they're responsible for developing curricular and systems. Let them run the school. The mayor's job is not to run those two agencies. That's not what the mayor's job is. If the superintendent of police, if they screw up, then they don't have anybody to blame but themselves. If the superintendent of or the CEO or whatever they label the person of public schools doesn't do a job, you can't blame the mayor. But when you have the mayor trying to micromanage, these agencies, it's a big problem. That's one of the things that Harold Washington said that you should not be doing. And every mayor since then has completely tried to rule the police department and the Chicago Public Schools.
Well, when I was in the legislature, they changed the rules so the mayor could run the public schools. But
wasn't that supposed to be temporary?
No, that was done when the Republicans took over. They had the House, the Senate, and the governor. And no, they weren't doing anything temporary. They were pushing things through, and they pushed that through.
What year were you in the legislature?
93 to 2001. So this happened.
So that was under Jim Thompson.
No, this happened. No, this happened in. This happened 95, 96. That was the
95.
That was the only
96. Time. Was that Jim Egger?
Yes, that's Jim Egger. That was the only time that the House was run by the Republicans.
Okay.
So that was a tough
Republicans,
time, because they when they controlled everything, their first order of business was how can we screw Chicago and Cook County? And I'm not joking. They literally had meetings on where we would sit on the floor and they would be like running through bills, trying to figure which ones would affect negatively or take some kind of control away from elected officials and people in the city and the county.
Oh, kind of like that squadron that when Barack Obama got elected, they went into the Caucus Room restaurant and said that they were going to vow to not support anything, even if it helped their own constituents, to ensure that he had a failed presidency.
Yes, it was exactly like that. It was they were 100% against anything that the Democrats did, just as the Republicans are like, we don't care if he's giving my people gold, we're against him. They were awful. Yeah. He had a tough one.
That's what they call the empty pool syndrome.
Really?
If we got to give it to them, we won't give it to anybody.
Oh yeah.
That was what happened down in Texas when there were some people who sued to desegregate a pool, and they won the case. And so what they did was they poured cement in the pool. Mm-hmm. So even the white people couldn't go there. So they said, if we have to let black people come there, nobody's going to come into the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what that model is. All right. Well, listen.
That's how the mayor gained control, and it's been that way ever since. And I don't think anyone's ever looked to. Well, they didn't look to change it until they passed this board.
Yeah. Well, I remember when she was running for mayor, Dorothy Brown, when she was running for mayor the first time, she said that if she was elected, in fact, she tried to make that her campaign mantra, that if she was elected, she would get the law changed back so that the schools are not run by the mayor. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that did not resonate with a whole lot of people because she didn't win. I think she was running against, was she running against Daley?
I believe so.
No. Did she run the first time against Rahm? Was it Rahm or Daley?
Boy, I thought she ran early, but maybe she did run late. It's been all the years starting to look alike to me, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I can't remember. All right. Okay, Todd. Well, listen, that's going to do it for us tonight. Listen, man, I really appreciate you coming in, filling in for me. We have to do it again.
You know, I'm usually free. I'm at the age where my wife is like, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, listen, then if that's the case, then I'm going to be calling on you a little more frequently. Monroe is with me every other week. I may call on you every other week.
All right. Sounds good to me.
All right. Sounds good. Tell your wife I said thank you. Okay. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. All right, folks, we'll see you next week. We gave you an extended version of the People Show this week. We'll see you next week with a whole nother set of news and breakthroughs. Listen, I didn't get to most of the stuff that I wanted to get to tonight, but we will definitely get to that next week, and certainly we'll probably have a whole new set of things. But I will certainly reiterate that, and a couple other things that's going on here. A federal appeals court has now upheld the Illinois 2023 Protect Illinois Commission Act, which reversing the lower federal court decision that had found that the law was unconstitutional. The ruling means that the law remains in effect. And this was the United States Courts of Appeal of the Seventh Circuit ruled 2-1 that Illinois' ban on many semi-automatic firearms, large capacity magazines, is constitutional under the current Second Amendment and Second Amendment precedent. The decision overturned a federal district judge's 2024 ruling that had struck down the law. Governor J.B. Pritzker and Attorney General Kwame Raoul praised the ruling as a public safety victory, while gun rights organizations said they intend to continue the legal challenge. Many legal observers believe this may not be the final word. The United States Supreme Court recently agreed to hear cases involving similar assault weapons bans from Illinois, Cook County, and Connecticut. So the constitutional question is expected to receive a nationwide ruling. We kind of know where that will go under this Supreme Court. All right, that's going to do it for me this week. I will be back with you. Don't forget that Black Women's Expo is July 31st through the 2nd. I'll be broadcasting live from there, 10 by 10 to win. We'll have a booth there, and there will be a voter registration pavilion where we will be registering people to vote. It is more critical than ever, what you see happening on the federal level of the president trying to compromise our elections, trying to interfere with our election so that they can stay in power. That's what this is all about. To minimize your voting power, to minimize our voting power, so that they can try and run the country as though we are a communist country. Now, he talks about communism, but he's actually trying to invoke communism. Socialism is not the bad word, and it's not the boogeyman word. The boogeyman is Donald Trump, who is trying to become an authoritarian. And that is exactly what he's trying to do in terms of trying to compromise and poison our elections. But the way that we stop that is to show up to the polls in droves so that this election is not close, so that there is an overwhelming number of people that is voting against this Republican regime. Now, keep this in mind. Understand this. This is not just about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is merely the avatar for this extremist, white supremacist, white nationalism in the Republican Party. There are members of the Republican Party that will not overtly spew the kinds of rhetoric and poison that's being spewed from Donald Trump. But they absolutely agree and support his ideology. And they'll pretend in your face that they don't. Todd Blanche will get confirmed. Tom Tillis can say all that he wants, that there can't be a whiff of political retribution, that he has to commit to it. Todd Blanche will get confirmed by these Republicans. There is no doubt about it. If he doesn't get it confirmed, I will have to see it in order for me to believe it. But there is no way. They have capitulated to Trump on every vote, with Kavanaugh, with Amy Coney Bryant, which now Donald Trump is calling her a traitor. These are people that he wants to be his complete sycophants. These are people that he wants to be loyalists to him, regardless of what the rule of law is. The rule of law does not apply with these people, period. So don't get so caught up in Donald Trump. It is the people who are operating these systems like the Russell vote, who goes under the radar. Russell Vogt is the secretary over the budget, the office and budget and management. That's who Russell Vogt. Stephen Miller. These are the architects of all of what Donald Trump's policies are. So when Donald Trump is long gone, these policies that they are trying to implement will be around much longer than Donald Trump. That's why we have to stop them all. That's why we must make sure that the Democrats take control of the House, and we should do all that we can to give Democrats control of the Senate so that we can neuter and neutralize what this fascist regime from Donald Trump all the way across the board in the House of Representatives with Mike Johnson and at that ilk, and over in the Senate with Ted Cruz, John Thune, and that ilk. This doesn't just stop at the orange man. As vile and as vicious of an human being that he is, there is an entire squadron that we must neutralize. And the only way that we're going to neutralize them is that we've got to go to the polls in untold numbers. Talk to your family members, talk to your friends, wherever you are, whatever city that you're in. If you're in Memphis, if you're in Tennessee, if you're in Arkansas, if you're in Mississippi, if you're in Georgia, if you're in Florida, wherever you are, make sure that you talk to your friends and family and plan to go to the polls early. Check now to make sure that your voter registration is current, is accurate. Check to know where your voting precinct will be so that you will know where on the day that you go to vote. But go to vote early. Go to your early voting site. Go and vote. Get others to do it. Do it 10 by 10. Get 10 people to go to the polls with together. 10 by 10, we win. You had 10 people to go to the polls with you. Call 10 people to make sure that they have their voter registration that is up to date and that you know where your voting precinct is in whatever municipality, whatever state, whatever city that you live in. That is just how vigilant that we have to be. We have to check on each other. All right, that's going to do it for me until next week. I will see you all on the next edition of The People Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio. Good night.